She'd done everything right. The Ivy League degree, the nights that bled into mornings, the smile that never cracked even when her voice did. In the mirrored halls of Crestline Solutions, success was measured in unread emails and canceled weekends. And tonight, Amelia Hart's future depended on one word at the top of her screen, pending approval. A promotion. A validation. A promise that everything she'd sacrificed had been worth it. She watched the cursor blink, as if the system itself were deciding whether she'd earned belonging. Outside her office window, San Francisco shimmered steel, glass, and fog folding over each other like layers of ambition. Inside, the air smelled of burnt coffee and anxiety. Her team had gone home hours ago. Only the hum of servers kept her company. She opened the final draft of the report that would decide the firm's biggest contract. Numbers, forecasts, tidy charts, truth shaped into confidence. The client was a healthcare startup trying to fund affordable clinics across the Midwest. Their hopes rested on Crestline's projections. Amelia believed in the project. It felt good. A soft chime broke the silence. A new message from Ryan Cole, VP Strategy. Let's round up the projections a bit. Investors need optimism. Her heart thudded. The data she'd modeled showed growth, but not that much. She typed, "Those numbers aren't verified." Then deleted the sentence. Retyped will do. Deleted again. The screen reflected her face, tired eyes framed by fluorescent light. She remembered something her father used to say when she'd worry about grades: if you have to lie to win, you already lost. She whispered it now, almost smiling at the memory. Then the smile faded. The promotion email still glowed behind her open tabs. Pending approval. Her phone buzzed with a text from her roommate. "You coming home? You're gonna burn out." She replied, almost done. In the quiet, she imagined the morning meeting, Ryan presenting, the partners nodding, her name maybe mentioned once, maybe not at all. Still, she'd move up another rung. One step closer to the life she'd pictured: the condo, the respect, the feeling of finally being enough. She reopened the spreadsheet and hovered over the cell that held the projected earnings. A tiny box, a tiny lie. Who would it hurt if it made everything run smoother? Her hand trembled on the mouse. Then she did something she hadn't planned. She printed the original report, the unaltered truth, and slipped it into her bag. Insurance, she told herself. Not rebellion. The elevator ride down was empty. Each floor ding echoed like a question. What are you willing to trade for approval? Outside, the wind off the bay carried the scent of rain. She tilted her head up, breathing deeply, letting the chill wake her. For a moment she felt weightless, suspended between who she was and who she might become. Her phone vibrated again. Ryan Cole subject, "Need those edits before 8 a.m. The message ended with two words that sounded like orders wrapped in charm. "Trust me." Amelia looked at the screen until the rain blurred the letters. Then she whispered, "I'm not sure I do." She slipped the phone into her pocket and started walking, away from the office lights, toward the dark streets humming with possibility. Somewhere behind her, a printer kept whirring, spitting out copies of the report she hadn't changed. By the time she reached the corner cafe, her email still read pending approval. But for the first time, she felt something better than approval: doubt, alive and honest. And as the rain began to fall, she realized that maybe doubt was where real integrity starts. Morning light bled through the blinds of Amelia's apartment, cutting across a table scattered with coffee cups and printouts. She hadn't slept. The untouched, truthful report lay beside her laptop. The version Ryan wanted, the polished one, glowed on the screen. Both were ready to send. Only one carried her name with honesty. She closed her eyes, hearing the voices of mentors and friends. Play the game. Everyone rounds numbers. You can't survive being pure. The words circled like a choir of compromise. At 7:45 a.m., her phone buzzed. "Ryan, did you upload the revisions? Partner review in 15. Her chest tightened. She hit send, but not the edited file. The unaltered report left her outbox like a confession. By the time she arrived at Crestline, the boardroom was already crowded. Ryan stood at the front, confident, sleek, pointing to the projection screen. Thanks to Amelia's projections, he said, our client's potential growth looks extraordinary. But when the slide appeared, the numbers were smaller, colder, real. The partners exchanged glances. Ryan froze. Amelia felt her pulse in her ears. One partner adjusted his glasses. These figures look conservative, Cole. Ryan smiled thinly. That must be a draft. Amelia spoke before he could finish. It's the final dataset, verified and complete. Silence. Then, the senior partner nodded. I prefer accuracy over optimism. Ryan's smile never reached his eyes again. The meeting continued, but every word echoed with a shift she couldn't name. When it ended, he pulled her aside. You sent the wrong file. No, she said softly. I sent the true one. You just embarrassed me in front of the board. I showed them the facts. He stepped closer, voice low. Facts don't close deals. Perception does. She met his gaze. Then maybe I'm in the wrong business. He left without replying. At her desk, the adrenaline faded into a tremor. She half expected a termination email. Instead, another notification popped up from Marian Lee, partner relations subject. Good work. Thanks for standing by the data. That's what clients remember in the long run. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. The simplest thing, telling the truth, hadn't destroyed her. It had anchored her. Still, as she stared at the screen, she knew Ryan wasn't finished. Crestline didn't forgive defiance easily. And somewhere in the system, her promotion request still hovered with the same gray label, pending approval. The next morning, sunlight spilled over the towers of Market Street, bouncing off glass and metal until it reached Crestline's lobby. Amelia arrived early, holding the proposal that had kept her awake for nights. Her reflection in the chrome elevator doors looked steadier than she felt. Marian Lee's office was filled with warm light and the smell of cedar. A small cactus sat beside a row of industry awards, proof that success didn't have to shout. Marian glanced up from the document, brow furrowed but curious. This is ambitious, she said. You're suggesting clients see every variable, every assumption we make? Amelia nodded. If they understand the process, they trust the result. Honesty can be a product, not a weakness. Marian tapped her pen thoughtfully. You know Ryan will hate this. I know, Amelia said. But if we only build what Ryan likes, we'll never build anything that lasts. Marian smiled, just barely, and leaned back in her chair. Leave it with me. If it has a heartbeat, I'll find out. The hours crawled. Outside Amelia's cubicle, laughter rose from break rooms and died quickly when she passed. The company rumor mill moved faster than email. By late afternoon, a calendar alert popped up. Executive review, ethical data pilot, 8 a.m. She closed her laptop slowly. The words looked unreal. That night, she walked the Embarcadero until her heels hurt, watching fog wrap the bridge in silver threads. The city didn't care who got promoted or punished. It only asked who would keep walking. When dawn broke, she returned to Crestline wearing calm-like armor. The boardroom smelled of coffee and new carpet. Ryan sat near the head of the table, polished as ever, scrolling through her slides on his tablet. Marian began. We're here to discuss an internal pilot on transparent analytics developed by Amelia Hart. A few executives nodded, others stared blankly, waiting to see which way the wind blew. Amelia spoke clearly. The goal isn't to expose us, it's to strengthen us. Clients are losing faith in consulting data. If we show our methodology instead of hiding it, we become the benchmark for honesty. For a moment, silence. Then Ryan's smooth voice cut through. It's admirable, he said, but it's also dangerous. Reveal too much, and we give competitors ammunition. Clients don't want complexity, they want certainty. Amelia met his eyes. They want truth they can believe in. Certainty built on lies collapses faster. The CFO interjected, tired but intrigued. What would it cost? Almost nothing, Marian said. A limited test. One client, internal oversight. Another partner leaned forward. Do it. Let's see if transparency sells. Ryan's jaw tightened. Fine, he said. But if it fails, it's on her. Amelia felt the words land like stones, but she didn't flinch. "Then let me carry it." When the meeting adjourned, people drifted out whispering. Marian lingered long enough to place a hand on Amelia's shoulder. "Congratulations," she murmured. "You just won something you don't yet understand." In the elevator, Amelia caught her reflection again, same eyes, same suit, but something inside had shifted. It wasn't pride, it was responsibility. Back at her desk, she opened the project folder and began building the framework from scratch. Columns, formulas, ethics notes. For the first time since joining Crestline, she was creating something that felt alive. Around sunset, she received a single-line email from Marianne, "Pilot approved." "Let's make it work." Amelia leaned back, exhaustion mingling with relief. The word approved glowed at the top of the screen. Finally, not a gate, but a beginning. She opened her journal and wrote, "When they said it's on me, they were right. Change always is." Outside, the city flickered on, millions of tiny approvals lighting up the skyline, and somewhere in that glow, a quiet revolution had started. The pilot launched quietly on a gray Monday morning without fanfare or announcements. A single client, Meridian Health, had agreed to test the new open data system. What looked like an ordinary dashboard on their laptops was, beneath the surface, a revolution. Every assumption visible, every margin explained, every risk tagged with a note that said why. Inside Crestline's glass tower, few people paid attention. To most, it was another side project destined to fade behind quarterly goals. Amelia didn't argue. She just kept watching the numbers come in, page visits, user comments, small sparks of curiosity lighting up the screen. 3 weeks later, the spark became a flame. Tech Ethicist Weekly published a feature titled "Consulting with a Conscience." It opened with a quote from Meridian CEO, "For the first time, I feel like our advisors treat honesty as part of the product." By noon, Amelia's inbox overflowed. Congratulations from colleagues, interview requests from reporters, even a short note from the partner chair. Good optics. 2 words that told her everything. Virtue had been rebranded as marketing. Still, she allowed herself a smile. It was a start. That afternoon, the finance division called an emergency meeting. Ryan Cole stood at the front of the conference room, sleeves rolled up, laser pointer in hand. The wall behind him glowed with red numbers. "Revenue per client is down 5% since we launched this transparency initiative," he said. "Clients love the clarity, sure, but they're using it to negotiate harder. Every revealed assumption becomes a discount." He paused, scanning the faces around the table before settling on her. "Your ethics may be costing us money." Amelia kept her voice even. "Or saving us from lawsuits we don't see yet." Murmurs rippled through the room. The CFO coughed softly. "Let's watch the quarter before we make judgments." When the meeting ended, Ryan brushed past her without a glance. The smell of his cologne lingered like static. Back at her desk, she opened the feedback log from Meridian. Hundreds of comments scrolled by, some grateful, some critical, most thoughtful. One line caught her eye. "Finally, someone trusts us with the truth." She whispered, "That's enough," and sat back, letting the tension ease from her shoulders. That night, she walked home beneath streetlights that pooled in golden circles on the pavement. The wind off the bay was sharp. It carried the scent of salt and damp concrete. For the first time in months, she felt a strange mixture of pride and fear. Pride for doing something right, fear of what rightness might cost. The next morning brought a new email from Marian Lee. "Board review, ethical analytics pilot. Friday, 9 a.m. Prepare full metrics." Amelia exhaled slowly. This was the test she'd known would come. The rest of the week blurred into spreadsheets and sleepless nights. She double-checked every formula, rehearsed every answer she might need. When exhaustion blurred the text on her screen, she opened the small notebook she kept by her keyboard and wrote a line her father had once said, "Truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to stand." By Thursday evening, she was still at the office. Through the glass walls, she could see the city turning to copper and rose. Ryan's office light was on across the hall. He was watching her, expression unreadable, a faint smile playing at the corner of his mouth. He crossed over and leaned against her doorframe. Big day tomorrow. Yes. You sure you want to own this thing? Because if the numbers don't impress the board, the responsibility's yours. I'm sure, she said. He nodded, almost kindly. Ambition's a tricky currency, Amelia. Spend it wrong and you'll be paying interest forever. When he left, the echo of his words stayed behind, soft and poisonous. She turned back to her monitor. The dashboards glowed in shades of blue and white, elegant and honest. It struck her that these weren't just numbers, they were a mirror. Every digit reflected a decision about who she wanted to be. At 10 p.m., she packed up her laptop and took the elevator down. The lobby security guard, an older man named Greg, nodded toward the news screen mounted near the turnstiles. Hey, that's your project, isn't it? On the ticker beneath the evening broadcast, the headline scrolled, Crestline's ethical analytics pilot draws industry praise. She watched the words disappear into the next story. For the first time, she didn't feel like an employee inside the machine. She felt like the glitch that proved another way was possible. At home, she didn't open her laptop. She stood by the window, watching the city's rhythm, traffic pulsing like a heartbeat, neon signs flickering on, a saxophone echoing faintly from the street below. She thought of the people who had written to her, the ones who believed that transparency could coexist with profit. And she thought of Ryan, calculating every word that might turn her victory into a liability. In the glass, she saw her reflection layered over the skyline. Same face, same tired eyes, but softer now, less desperate. Approval had always been the prize. Tonight it felt irrelevant. She picked up her notebook again and wrote a sentence that came to her like breath. If integrity costs profit, the real deficit isn't financial. The line looked simple, but it carried everything she'd learned, the price of silence, the weight of truth, the quiet strength of choosing decency in a place that confused success with noise. She closed the notebook, placed it beside her phone, and turned off the lights. For once, she didn't need to check her messages before sleeping. Somewhere downtown, another meeting was probably being scheduled to debate the project's impact on margins. But here, in the dark calm of her apartment, impact meant something else entirely. The impact of living a day without lying to herself. Tomorrow would bring the board review, Ryan's challenges, and whatever came next. Tonight was hers. As she drifted toward sleep, the city's sounds faded into a steady hum, the low, patient rhythm of a conscience that refused to be bought. The sky was the color of polished steel when Amelia arrived. The boardroom door was already open, voices low, papers rustling. The screen at the front glowed with her presentation, transparent charts, blue arcs of data, lines that told a clean story. Ryan sat near the head of the table, immaculate as always. Marian motioned for her to begin. Amelia walked to the center, her palms damp but steady, the faint hum of the city muffled behind glass. Good morning, she said. You've all seen the pilot results. Meridian's costs stabilized, and client satisfaction rose 23%. Our revenue margin dropped slightly, but long-term retention increased. She clicked through the slides, the rhythm of her voice measured and calm. Halfway through, a partner interrupted. So we're earning less by being honest? Amelia met his eyes. We're earning trust. That's a different kind of capital. Another partner leaned back, skeptical. Clients may respect us, but respect doesn't pay salaries. She paused, then said quietly, neither does rebuilding a reputation after it's lost. The room fell into thoughtful silence. Only the projector's fan whispered. Ryan folded his arms. You're framing this as morality versus profit. That's sentimental. We're here to win. Amelia felt the weight of the years she had spent chasing approval, every late night, every nod that meant belonging. Winning, she said, shouldn't require pretending. Marian's gaze met hers, proud but cautious. Let's finish the review, she said. When Amelia ended, the partners whispered among themselves. The chair finally spoke. The board appreciates innovation, Ms. Hart. But we must consider sustainability. We'll table this until the next quarter. The phrase landed like a polite dismissal, progress postponed. Ryan smiled faintly. You heard them. The idea's charming but premature. She gathered her papers slowly, heart thudding. Then I'll keep refining it, she said. Because the timing will never be right for something uncomfortable. Outside the boardroom, Marian caught up with her. You held your ground, she said. Barely. That's what holding it looks like. They shared a brief smile before Marian turned back to her meetings. Amelia walked down the long hall lined with awards, each plaque gleaming like a mirror of old victories. She could see her reflection in the glass, small, centered, unvowed. By afternoon, emails circulated, pilot deferred pending review. The familiar phrase again, pending approval, but now it felt almost ironic. She had learned not to wait for it. At her desk, she opened the feedback portal one last time. Meridian's final comment glowed on the screen. We'll continue using this model, with or without crestline. That single sentence erased the fatigue from her shoulders. The work had outgrown its walls. Ryan appeared at her door just as she was packing up. You're a stubborn one, he said. I prefer consistent. You could have had a safe path here. I still do, she said. It just might not run through crestline. He gave a thin smile. You'll regret walking away from protection. Maybe, but I'd regret staying more. When he left, the quiet felt different, no longer isolation, but space. As dusk fell, Amelia stepped outside. The air smelled of rain and paper and something new. Across the street, a group of interns laughed over takeout boxes. She remembered being one of them, believing that integrity was a luxury reserved for people who'd already made it. Now she knew better, it was the making itself. At home, she opened her laptop and drafted an email to Marian Lee, subject, Independent Ethics Consultancy Proposal. Thank you for believing in the pilot. If Crestline decides not to continue, I'd like to explore building it independently. Would you consider advising? She reread it twice, then pressed send. The window pane reflected her faint smile. No fanfare, no dramatic finale, just the quiet certainty that she had crossed the line separating compliance from conviction. Outside, the first drops of rain began to fall, gentle and persistent, blurring the city lights into ribbons of silver. She watched them trace paths down the glass and whispered to herself, some things shouldn't need approval. The city answered with its steady hum, the sound of millions of choices, honest and imperfect, shaping another night. A month passed before the official memo reached her, Crestline to discontinue pilot. Focus shifted to core growth initiatives. No surprise. No explanation. Just the quiet efficiency of a system returning to its comfort zone. Amelia read the email twice, then closed her laptop. Outside her apartment window, San Francisco shimmered under morning fog. For the first time in years, she didn't feel dread at the idea of an ending. She felt stillness. 2 hours later, she boxed up the last of her desk plants and notebooks. Colleagues stopped by with polite smiles, half whispers of good luck. Ryan didn't appear. Marian did. Leaving the tower? She asked gently. Seems the tower's leaving me, Amelia said, smiling. Marian handed her a small envelope. Open it later. The elevator ride down felt shorter than usual. When the doors opened to the lobby, the receptionist gave a quiet nod, the kind reserved for someone who had weathered a storm with dignity. Amelia stepped into the street and let the cold wind carry away the smell of recycled air. That evening she sat on her couch, unsealed the envelope. Inside was a single business card, Marian's personal number, and a handwritten note. Truth rarely wins fast, but it always wins honest. Call when you're ready. She placed the card beside her notebook and began sketching ideas, a small consultancy that trained startups to build transparent data models, ethics workshops for young analysts, a podcast about corporate integrity. It looked impossible and exhilarating. Weeks turned into months. She rented a shared workspace, built a bare-bones website, and called it Clearline Analytics, a quiet echo of the place she'd left behind. Clients came slowly, one by one. A nonprofit hospital, a local school board, a renewable energy startup. None paid as much as Crestline's contracts, but each meeting ended with gratitude instead of doubt. On the day her first long-term contract was signed, she walked along the waterfront with a takeaway coffee. The wind off the bay bit at her hair, and she laughed aloud at how light she felt. Her phone buzzed. A new message from Marianne. Heard about Clearline. Proud of you. Board's rethinking transparency after all. Amelia smiled. The words didn't feel like vindication, they felt like closure. The truth had taken its time, as truth always does, but it had found its footing. That night she met her father for dinner. He listened while she told him everything, the pilot, the politics, the choice to start over. When she finished, he raised his glass. To the only approval that matters, he said. Your own. She blinked back tears, laughing softly. Finally got it. Later, walking home under the streetlights, she passed the high-rise that had once defined her life. Its windows glowed like constellations, distant and silent. She paused on the sidewalk, remembering the long nights, the blinking cursor, the word pending approval that used to hold her hostage. Now there were no pending items, no permissions waiting to be granted. Only the next step forward. In her apartment, she opened her notebook to the last blank page and wrote, "Success is the courage to remain honest when the room prefers comfort." She set down the pen, exhaled, and let the city's noise drift through the window. Cars, laughter, the faint echo of a saxophone somewhere in the dark. For the first time, silence wasn't absence. It was peace.